Okay, this is the recipe for Congress tarts. I was asked by a customer for these years ago when I used to cook for the WI country markets. And when I did some research online, there seemed to be massive confusion about mini Bakewell tarts and Congress tarts. Eventually, through lots of reading and talking to the ladies on the market who were had so much knowledge, are amazing, I eventually worked out that a Congress tart is different to a Bakewell tart because it's more like a macaroon inside a pastry case, whereas a Bakewell tart is a cake. So you've got the raspberry and the almond in both, but the Congress tart, it has no egg yolks or flour in the top of it. So I'll show you the recipe. So first job is to make the pastry for the Congress tarts. We have got 200 grams of plain flour, 70 grams of butter, which needs to be really cold and cut into really small pieces, a pinch of salt, 80 grams of caster sugar, 1 beaten egg, and we're going to need half a teaspoon of almond extract as well. Okay, so we're going to put the flour, plain flour, and the butter into a bowl. Make sure your hands are cold for this. The last thing you want is for the butter to melt. You just want to rub it between your fingers to break it down into small pieces without melting it. So your mixture eventually should look, they say, like breadcrumbs. Okay, I'm pretty much happy with that. You don't want to over rub it, it's almost better to under rub it than over rub it. Okay, so you're going to add your caster sugar, just a pinch of salt, almond extract. A little stir and then add in the egg. I find a fork is best for mixing up any kind of dough, really, bread or pastry or anything. It's easier than with a spoon. You may need to add a little bit more liquid. If you do, just use a drop of cold water until you've got a nice soft dough. So mix it with a fork until you have to use your hands. You want to keep your warm hands away from the pastry as much as possible. And then just bring it all together. You could use just a plain short crust for this recipe, but I like the richer pastry, really adds to it, I think. Okay, so once you've got that all combined, you're going to put that into a bag or cover it really well with cling film. You're going to put it in the fridge. It needs to be in there for at least an hour. This is a very soft dough, it's really sticky, and you need it to be nice and cold to be able to roll it out nicely. So we're going to roll out the pastry. And it is quite a sticky one, so just make sure you've got plenty of flour on your surface. want it fairly thin. If you go too thin, it's going to stick. But it's not nice if it's thick. I haven't used all the pastry here, I've got a little bit left over. I know there's going to be too much. Okay, so now we're going to cut this out to fit our greased bun tray. And this cutter is about 7.5 centimetres across, which is about 3 inches. And that fits my bun tray quite nicely. Once we've cut them out, put those into the bun tray and just gently press them in. If you're working on a very, very warm day, you might want to put them back in the fridge while you're making the filling. There we go. Our case is all ready. Okay, so we're ready to make the filling. We've got 100 grams of ground almonds. We've got 150 grams of caster sugar. We've got some flaked almonds to put on the top. We're going to need 2 teaspoons of ground rice, and we're going to need 2 egg whites. So the first thing we're going to have to do is to separate the whites from the yolks. So I'll just tip it from one half of the shell to the other. It can be really tricky to get used to. One trick I can show you, which is quite nifty, if you're struggling to separate your eggs, is to crack them onto a side plate, crack the egg, and then put an egg cup over the top of the yolk, press down firmly, and off the white comes. It's really important that the bowl that you use has no grease in it at all. We don't want any fat getting anywhere near these egg whites, or it won't be quite the same. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to whisk up the egg whites until they're frothy, but they shouldn't be stiff enough to form peaks. So I'm going to do that with my electric whisk. There we go, so you can see that that's nice and frothy, it's not going to form peaks. Okay, so we're going to add in our sugar, almonds, 2 teaspoons of ground rice. I'm just going to whisk all that together. put that into our pastry cases. Okay, we need our oven preheating to gas mark 3. And we're going to put a tiny piece of seedless raspberry jam into each pastry case. Too much in there. Put in our almond filling. There we go, we've probably got enough filling to do another couple, I reckon, so probably would have made about 14 of them. And then we're just going to sprinkle some flaked almonds on the top of each one. I think some people put a pastry cross on the top, but I prefer the flaked almonds. There we go, and they're ready to go into the oven for around 30 minutes at gas mark 3, which I think is about 160 degrees Celsius. There we go. Okay, so they're all ready. They've been in the oven for about 25 to 30 minutes on the centre shelf. I've let them cool down in the tray on a cooling rack for about 5 minutes just to let the pastry toughen up a little bit, otherwise they tend to break. And then just use a spoon to take them out of your tin and onto your wire wrap.